In 2018, after the tragic shooting that killed 17 people at the Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, this country once again saw hope, brief hope. The students that survived that attack rallied the country in ways we had never seen before. The kids, many of them too young to vote or to buy a gun themselves at the time, visited Congress. They organized protests, pressed officials on national TV. They literally created a movement and a moment, the Parkland movement, that together they tried very hard to achieve change in this country. And yet again, Congress failed them. But there's a person that kept on pushing, even today. His name is Manuel Oliver. He is the co-founder of Change the Ref, an organization dedicated to raising awareness about mass shootings and reducing the influence of the NRA and gun manufacturers in American politics. It is a tough job. He knows that, but he can't stop. He says because his 17-year-old son, Joaquin, was killed in Parkland. Joaquin was a great writer. He was an athlete. He loved music. His friends called him Guac. He was murdered on Valentine's Day. And today, amid the all too familiar tragedy that we're seeing in Uvalde, Texas, Manuel has a message. It's up to the ones that lost the kids to do the job. Joining us now from Parkland, Florida, is Manuel Oliver, co-founder of Change the Ref and father of Joaquin Oliver. Manuel, thank you so much for making time to be with us tonight. I can only imagine how difficult of a day this is. It is a painful reminder of the tragedy that your own family and your own community had to live through back in 2018 when your son was killed. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what you're feeling, how you're feeling today, what's going on through your mind?
It's been a long day. My emotions are mixed, but I'm mostly mad. I am very frustrated. A lack of leadership is what I feel happening. I am not surprised, and anyone that is surprised after this is just missing the whole point, because we became used to these situations. So I will do tomorrow what I did yesterday, and after tomorrow, and along with my wife, Patricia, try to prevent these tragedies from happening. We have not done enough after we see these things. I have to convince myself that I got to do a better job for Joaquin, for the 19 kids that lost their lives today, and for every single victim of gun violence in America.
I was struck by something that you said earlier in reaction to the shooting in Texas, and it's what I just closed out that segment with. It's up to the ones that lost the kids to do the job, and that seems like an incredibly unfair burden for people to have to deal with, given the fact that you've already lost your child in this senseless gun violence. But tell me more what you mean by that and why you feel it is up to those who have lost the most to save the rest of us.
Well, I think that the one way to explain that is that I don't have anything to risk, okay? We paid a very high price to do what we do, Patricia and myself and other parents. But we're not afraid. We're not afraid to do the job. We're not afraid to hold accountable anyone, from the White House all the way to members of Congress or local politicians. So it is unfair that we go through the loss of a loved one and still need to make things better for the rest of the nation. But it makes sense if you think of what I just told you. My advice is that you don't want to have an interview at 1 a.m. And pay the price that we paid to fix things. What you want is to avoid going through the tragedy, to understand that you can be part of a solution.
And I got to ask you about that solution. I mean, we always see in the tragedies, in the aftermath of these tragedies, a lot of lip service from politicians. If Congress is reluctant to act, what actions can parents take to push for gun control reforms outside the legislative process, if there is one?
Well, inaction is not the answer. Staying in the living room watching the news tomorrow all day long is not the answer. I remember that when Parkland happened, almost 1 million people met in Washington, D.C., and we had that huge march, and we made some noise. And we thought that our politicians will follow those initial steps, and they didn't. So it was not our fault. I've been working just like the White House is doing today since the last 5 years nonstop. But if our politicians, regardless of the color of their party, and if they are Republicans or Democrats, at this point, that's not even the main issue here. The main issue is that if they don't follow our demands, our solutions, we're not even asking them to write them down. We are giving them the homework already made. They just need to pass these bills. These bills are stuck either in the Senate floor or in the Congress floor. So it's a total not willing to solve the problem, what I see here. Our politicians are either afraid of the gun industry or in partnership with the gun industry. I don't find any other logic reason for all this.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point about why politicians are not doing this. I mean, I look at, Governor Abbott in Texas. I look at your own governor in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis. These are two politicians. They are both against gun control reforms. And yet, unfortunately, some of the bloodiest shootings in this country have taken place in these two states. What is your message to these two governors this evening?
They're not against gun control or gun regulations. They are advocates for open carry and free permit to anyone to go ahead and purchase a gun. They've been promoting this. And I don't know how Governor Abbott is going to explain what happened after all the time that he's been spending preaching for guns rights, how he's going to level that with the right of parenting and these kids to become adults, young adults, in just the pursuit of happiness, or DeSantis, who is promising that before he leaves office, he will make sure that we have an open carry law in Florida. So I like to think that these two guys are in big trouble after what just happened. I would like to think that the whole nation will start judging and pointing their finger to people like these two individuals that have no mercy when it comes to show evil thoughts and terrible planning for a nation. I really think that in my personal feeling with DeSantis is that this is becoming a personal thing for me. I hate to say it, but I never felt that someone could be worse to handle a group of people or represent a group of people like Ron DeSantis is.
Manuel Oliver, the co-founder of the gun reform group Change the Ref and father to Joaquin Oliver, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for speaking to us on what I know has been a difficult and long day for you. Thank you, sir.